After a recent court victory in the federal district court involving absentee ballots cast in June, Attorney General Mark Herring said this agreement is another big win for Virginia voters and for democracy. And it's another important step in ensuring that we can have free, fair, and safe elections this fall, despite the challenges presented by the COVID pandemic. And this week, in the federal district courts in Richmond, we filed legal actions to compel the State Board of Elections to recognize the same pandemic exception that was extended to absentee voters, as well as to at least one U.S. Senate candidate. And we are awaiting a final disposition in the near future. In-person absentee voting begins September 18th, and the state faces a September 19th deadline to mail absentee ballots, which are in high demand this year due to the novel coronavirus pandemic, according to a recent report in the Washington Post regarding the decision by Kanye West to appeal the decision that had removed him from the ballot in Virginia. In fact, according to Governor Northam, across the nation, there have been more requests for absentee ballots cast this year than in history. So when you receive your ballot, more likely than not, neither my name nor Kanye's will be on it in Virginia. For those who may not understand the significance of Kanye's name on the ballot, looking ahead to November and the election, some analysts predict one of four scenarios, all of which assume the Commonwealth of Virginia will deliver its 13 electoral college votes to the Democrat Party nominee, Joe Biden, just like it did in the 2016 presidential election. Old Faithful. Number one, Trump wins 270 to 268 by holding on to the states he won in 2016, except for Michigan and Pennsylvania. Two, Biden wins 270 to 268 by winning the Clinton states, plus Arizona, Michigan, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, and Wisconsin. Three, Trump wins by 270 to 268 by winning New Hampshire and holding on to the states he won in 2016, except Arizona and Florida. And four, Biden wins 270 to 268 by losing Minnesota, but winning the Clinton states plus Arizona, Michigan, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, and Pennsylvania, according to a recent report by CNN. With his name on the ballot in only 3 states, it is practically impossible for Kanye to reach the 270 votes required to become the next president. That's just the way the math works. However, his presence on the ballot in Virginia may upset the projections by shaking the reliability of a blue Virginia in the political math. And it is very interesting that a progressive state like the Commonwealth of Virginia might create obstacles to impose an undue burden on an African American man in a year in which their nominee chose his running mate expressly for her color. And when everywhere you go, you will see a sign that says, Black Lives Matter. But then again, this is the state that expressed no objection to the presence of Andrew Straw, who before the pandemic was attempting to run for Congress in 3 states, including Virginia and in Virginia's 8th congressional district. But to understand both the fight that Kanye's campaign as well as mine will face, if we prevail at gaining access to the ballot, you must understand a little more about politics than what you may hear or read in the news. So for a few moments, let's attempt to understand real politics in Virginia to help you become a more informed voter, empowered to make a difference in what Don Beyer, the incumbent in Virginia's 8th congressional district, has called the most important election of his lifetime. Donald Beyer, in the last most important election of his lifetime, according to the Washington Post, was the heir apparent to a potentially vacated seat in the U.S. Senate in 2016, had Tim Kaine ascended from old reliable Virginia to the office of the vice presidency. And this handsome reward to Beyer, one of the top 20 wealthiest men in Congress, can be explained by the laws of science and politics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And you don't get something for nothing in politics. It just doesn't happen. You see, for Don and Mark Warner, the wealthiest member of the Senate, up for re-election also this year to a seat he only won by 1 point in 2014, and even Tim Kaine have shared a fate that rests in the hands of the most reliable Democrat district in the Commonwealth, the 58th most reliable congressional district in the nation, and the top gaining Democrat Party district in 2016. A congressional district where the incumbent Don Beyer actually broke an all-time record for voter percentages against a 25-year-old candidate in the 2018 midterms that sent Tim Kaine back to the Senate for another term. And in that kingmaker congressional district for Virginia, the county of Arlington is the crown, determined to be so by the Washington Post in 2017, to be the single locality with the power to decide all statewide elections. For the past 2 decades, a municipality in which the Arlington Sun-Gazette reports last voted for Republican presidential nominee in 1980, when Ronald Reagan defeated Jimmy Carter. That was back in the days when Arlington was in Frank Wolf's former district, and when Republicans were already losing at least 2-1 in the city of Alexandria, a city that had its first and last Republican mayor for only 1 term in the 1870s. Virginia's 8th congressional district was lost to Jim Moran in 1990, and the margin between Republicans and Democrats in victory margin has grown increasingly every year since. So with so much incentive for Democratic Party appointed judges in an election in which Ralph Northam just yesterday assured everyone will be fair, even while openly admitting that he wants the current president to be defeated and that is supposed to be the reason why you should vote, the bellwether for how much we can rely on the fairness of the November election vote essentially begins when the courts decide the cases for both Kanye and my campaign. It is already clear to a mathematical certainty that anyone who might wish to vote for either Kanye or myself will be compelled to take the extra effort to actually write in a name on the ballot, which generally accrues to the advantage of any candidate whose name is already pre-printed on the ballot. Back in May, according to WTOP News Radio, a lawsuit filed in federal court in Alexandria by 5 residents of Fairfax County and 1 Prince William County named Virginia's State Board of Elections and several elections officials as the defendants. The Republicans argued that the Board of Elections emergency plan, spurred by Governor Ralph Northam's Executive Order 56, unconstitutionally widens who can cast absentee ballots in the June 23rd primary elections. Following a similar story back in April, ABC 13 reported that the American Civil Liberties Union had asked a federal court to block Virginia election officials from requiring that absentee voters find a witness to watch them sign their ballots, citing the social distancing guidelines prompted by the coronavirus pandemic. In a lawsuit filed on behalf of 3 voters and the League of Women Voters, the ACLU argued the witness requirement could force absentee voters who live alone to choose between not voting or risking their health by asking another person to come to their homes to witness their signatures. Intriguingly, just 2 days before the ACLU litigation commenced, the Alexandria Circuit Court actually denied that any pandemic exemption existed, on the rationale that it did not bar anyone from exercising their constitutional rights, pandemic or not, a decision with which Mark Herring actually agreed when on the day of the June 23rd primaries, he dispatched 3 attorneys to the circuit court for the city of Richmond to block our qualification for the November ballot. But in Mark In March, Mark Herring expressed no objection to permitting a pandemic exception for a Republican candidate, with little chance of winning, albeit, and who, even after being granted the exception, failed to qualify for the ballot with a substantially lower threshold of signatures to collect. In deciding to grant the exception for voters, the federal district court in Richmond specifically stated that they had noted the objections brought by the Republican Party of Virginia. But that judge concluded that every indication before the court is that the June primary was conducted without the witness signature requirement and without any corresponding increase in voter confusion or election fraud. According to a recent report by the Associated Press, Herring previously reached an agreement and also approved by the same judge to promote safe voting by mail for the June 23rd primaries by allowing acceptance of absentee ballots without a witness signature. The ACLU is certainly aware of both Kanye's action as well as our own. And apparently they take the position that no voter should ever be compelled to choose between not voting or risking their health by asking another person to come to their homes to witness their signatures, but believe that a candidate attempting to solicit signatures is somehow exempt. At the governor's most recent COVID-19 update, he apparently expressed the view that census takers are also granted some magical candidate immunity, and he encouraged everyone to cooperate with the census takers who come knocking on their doors, on the rationale that every completed census means another $2,000 for his welfare state. So, if you haven't voted yet and want to send a clear message against this welfare state to Richmond, cast your vote in Virginia's 8th Congressional District for the president. Flip Virginia and clean the swamp. And if you want to demonstrate to the establishment that you and not them are in control, write in the name Major Mike Webb for U.S. Congress. My name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for U.S. Congress with liberty, honor, and excellence. By God, we shall make America great again. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.